Primary residence, 30% of remaining assets.
What are you, nuts? Have you forgotten Kirshner? Freddie, it's a negotiation.
All right, so a great part of this. I mean, I love it where he spits the water out. Again, he doesn't reject the offer using words. He uses a signal. Welcome to the Negotiation Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, John Lowry. Today I want to talk about signals in negotiation. Really sophisticated negotiators, they understand the importance of signals. Now, as we think about negotiation, there is the substance of the negotiation, but then there's also the signals that we send. And these signals are really, really important in terms of understanding what the other side might do or might not do, or giving them a sense of where you are, or how you're approaching the deal. Now, signals are also really important because it's another language that we use in negotiation. It's a way in which we communicate with the other side. And there are things in negotiation that you want to communicate, but frankly, just because of social norms, it's really hard to say. And so the way that we do that is we find different ways to say things. We send signals. And so what I'd like to do is to watch a movie clip from the movie Intolerable Cruelty. This is an older movie that stars George Clooney, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and it chronicles a divorce. It's a comedy. It's a funny movie. But in this movie, there is a moment of negotiation that I want you to watch with me. And I want you to see all the different ways that these two lawyers negotiating with each other send signals. Now, it's designed to be comedic, but there's real value in terms of understanding negotiation, in terms of seeing the signals that they send. Many of these are what I call the gasp. Okay, now they're not gasps per se, but I call it the gasp in terms of how we react to another side's offer, especially if we think it's outrageous or ridiculous. So let's take a look at Intolerable Cruelty. Your assignment as we watch this clip is to look for all of the different signals, all the different ways these two lawyers send a message to each other without using words. All right, let's take a look.
Freddie Bender, this is Rex Roth, and you are the lovely Marilyn.
Please, Miss Rex Roth. And you must be Mr. Massey.
Please, Miles. Sit down.
All right, so right there, just in the introductions, we see signals that are being sent, right? And so here you see Ms. Rex Roth, who's insistent that she be called Ms. Rex Roth. She's trying to make things very formal, whereas here you have Miles Massey, where he says, no, just call me Miles. He's trying to make things more informal. And so right there's a signal that's being sent in terms of how they're approaching this. All right, let's keep going.
Sit down. Oh, Freddie, I was sorry to hear about the Goldberger Award. Pastry?
We did very well. We did very well.
Not to worry, Mrs. Rexroth. You're ably represented. I'm sure Freddie's just too modest to tell you he used to clerk for Clarence Thomas.
All right, so we've got some more signals there. Okay, so you see here right away, right out of the gate, you've got Miles Massey that is challenging the credibility of the other attorney. And so straight out of the gate, he kind of insults him. He's trying to create this divide between the attorney and the client by questioning the attorney's result in this other case. And here now, all of a sudden, the attorney has to go on the defensive in terms of talking about how well they did. And now Miles, in a sarcastic way, kind of comes back and says, oh, no, you're ably represented. And so already, just in the first 15 seconds of this clip, you have had a lot that has happened in terms of the other parties or both parties telling each other how they are going to approach this deal. And if you can't pick up on it already, this one's probably not headed to a great spot the way that they're positioning this, okay? So let's keep going.
Pastry, going begging.
Don't try to bait me, Miles. Now, if you have a proposal to make, let's hear it.
Well, at this point, my client is still prepared to consider reconciliation.
My client's ruled that out.
My client is prepared to entertain an amicable dissolution of the marriage without prejudice.
That's a fart in a stiff wind.
All right, so now we see the sarcasm, right? I mean, the fart in a stiff wind comment. This isn't going anywhere. They're not liking each other's proposals. They're not even responding to them. They're just characterizing them. And so here we're sending signals that so far we're not even close enough to get a negotiation started. There's proposals being sent. They're being rejected. They're being rejected in a bit of a humorous but a very strong way. And so this is a train wreck in the works. But let's keep watching because there's more signals coming.
My client proposes a 30-day cooling off period.
My client feels sufficiently dispassionate.
My client asks that you not initiate proceedings pending his setting certain affairs in order.
All right, so I love the laughter right there, right? So like here, it's like there's no point even using words anymore. Now we're just laughing at each other. And so they laugh, and then George Clooney laughs back in this really sarcastic way. And the poor gentleman that is, Miles Massey's client here, he has no idea what's going on. He looks scared to death. But you'll see that play out here.
Oh, what's so goddamn funny?
Please, let me handle this. All right, so much for the icebreakers. What are you after, Freddie?
My client is prepared to settle for 50% of the marital assets.
Why only 50, Freddie? Why not 100? While we're dreaming, why not 150? Are you familiar with Kirshner?
Kirshner does not apply.
Bring this to trial. We'll see if Kirshner applies.
What's Kirshner?
Please, let me handle this.
Kirshner was in Kentucky.
Kirshner was in Kentucky?
Kirshner was in Kentucky.
All right, Freddie, forget Kirshner. What's your bottom line?
Primary residence, 30% of remaining assets.
What are you, nuts? Have you forgotten Kirshner? Freddie, it's a negotiation.
All right, so a great part of this. I mean, I love it where he spits the water out. Again, he doesn't reject the offer using words. He uses a signal. And it's a behavioral signal where he does something that is totally against social norms, and he spits all this water out. And that moment where the camera goes back to the other attorney and gets the reaction, and then the sarcasm of Miles Massey, where he says, what about 100? What about 130? And he gets to the point to where it's ridiculous. But by him being ridiculous, again, he's sending a signal. And the signal to the other side that he's sending is, I'm willing to be ridiculous because you're being ridiculous. And so as a result, this thing escalates. We get a little argument about Kirshner, which isn't going anywhere. And then all of a sudden we get the slam of the briefcase, which is kind of the ultimate signal here that this is done and they're walking out. Let's watch the end of the clip.
See you at the preliminary.
Freddie, we're all friends here. It's a negotiation. Hey, Freddie, fine. We'll eat the pastry.
All right, this is really important and it's easy to miss, but I want you to catch it because that comment of we're all friends here is a really, really important comment. It's easy to miss and you may not have really picked up on what it's saying, but what it's saying is in negotiation, there is a level of theater that happens. And these signals create this theater. And these signals are really, really important in terms of the messages that they could communicate. But part of this is to understand that what people do in negotiation, sometimes it shouldn't be taken that seriously. And so here's this moment where these two lawyers, they're performing a bit in front of their clients. And yes, they're sending signals. They're doing these dramatic, funny kinds of things. But at the end of the day, Miles Massey still wants to make progress. And despite all of the signals, he's still looking to try to figure out how to put a deal together. Now, he didn't work really hard in terms of making a bunch of concessions and things like that. But that comment of, look, we're all friends, suggests that no one really took significant offense to what happened in that negotiation right there, that there's probably going to be another opportunity to try to work a deal in terms of getting this divorce worked out, that there's going to be more conversation that takes place. Yes, tensions are high, emotions are high, all of that gets created. That's sometimes part of this process, especially when you're trying to settle a lawsuit. But it's important to recognize that the signals are just signals, and sometimes we overreact, or sometimes we want to respond in such an intense way that we overplay the signal to where it's just a signal, and it's just part of the process. So a lot to learn from this little clip in Intolerable Cruelty. It's a great example of how to respond to other people's offers, and then also how to use signals to communicate the things that we want to communicate in the midst of a negotiation. So as you think about your upcoming negotiations, pay close attention to your signals. Remember that you've got to perceive and you got to be very careful about watching for the signals that the other side sends, and make sure that you're picking up on the messages of those signals, because those signals are important tells and can be very important to you in terms of outlining and thinking through and then executing upon your strategy to get the deal that you want to get. At the same time, you've got to be very careful about the signals that you send. And you've got to make sure that you don't make the mistake of sending a signal that you didn't intend to send. And where that happens is in the informal part of a negotiation. The conversations in the hallway, the conversations around the water cooler. Sometimes it could be just an off-the-cuff comment that you make on a telephone call. But many times people make mistakes in terms of saying things or doing things that just send the wrong signal. And so we want to be careful not to do that. And then lastly, we want to use signals very strategically. And sophisticated negotiators, they're very, very careful, and they're very calculated in terms of the signals that they send. It's a great tool because it allows for a message to be sent, but to be sent in such a way that's productive and that's not real combative and in your face. And so finding the signals that we're comfortable sending and using those signals at the right time to send the message that we want to send, well, that's the art and that's the practice of a great negotiator, and you've got the opportunity now.